The meeting room was quiet. Too quiet. Ambassador Jakara felt her antenna twitch with nervousness. She was an insect-like creature from the Velti species, and today she was running the 1147th session of the Galactic Council. She looked at the empty chairs in front of her and felt worried. Today was special. 2 new species wanted to join the council. This happened rarely. Most species took hundreds of years to find space travel technology, but these 2 species had found it at almost the same time. That was strange. Very strange. The first species came from a planet called Earth. They called themselves humans. The second species came from a planet near a star called Epsilon Eridani. They called themselves Cathari. Neither group knew about the other until today. Jakara looked at the data on her screen. Her body went cold. Both planets were Class 12 death worlds. She read the words again, hoping she was wrong. But no, Class 12, the worst kind of planet. Only 3 planets in every 1,000 were this dangerous. Most council species came from nice, safe worlds. Gentle gravity, calm weather. Animals that ate plants, not meat. These were Class 2 or Class 4 worlds, comfortable places where life was easy. But Class 12 worlds, those were nightmares. Heavy gravity that crushed bones, wild storms that destroyed cities, animals that hunted and killed. And somehow life survived there. Somehow intelligent life grew there. And that life became strong. Very strong. The doors opened. The human delegation walked in first. Ambassador Maria Chen smiled and waved. Next to her was Commander James Walsh. The humans called him Jimmy. They both looked relaxed and happy. They wore simple clothes and walked with easy confidence. Then the Cathari entered. Pack leader Varesh was tall and muscular. His companion, Hunter Creedall, had sharp teeth that showed when he spoke. They looked like predators. Big predators. They moved like hunters, smooth and careful. Around the room, council members tried not to show their fear. But Jakara could see it. She could see how they looked at the newcomers. Both species had eyes that faced forward. Predator eyes. Eyes made for hunting. And when they smiled, their teeth showed. Teeth made for eating meat. The meeting began. Jakara explained the rules. All species who wanted to join must pass the trial of worthiness. This was a series of tests. The tests showed if a species could help the council. Maria asked questions about the council. She asked about trade, about laws, about how decisions were made. Her questions were smart and careful. Varesh asked about defense, about territory, about how the council protected its members. His questions were direct and practical. Then something strange happened. Maria mentioned Earth's gravity. She said it was 1G standard. She said this like it was normal. Like everyone should know this. But the council chamber was set to 0.6G. Most species thought 0.6G was heavy. Very heavy. But the humans and Cathari did not seem to notice. Varesh was talking about Cathari culture. He moved his arm to point at something. His hand hit the metal table. The table bent. The metal actually bent under his hand. Varesh looked embarrassed. He apologized quickly, but everyone had seen it. He had damaged solid metal by accident. Counselor Marek, a wise old reptile, whispered to Jakara. His voice was quiet and scared. He said that both species looked comfortable. They were not struggling with the gravity. They were not tired. They looked like they were in a place that was too easy for them. The first test began. It was called the Patience Maze. This was a virtual puzzle. It needed complex thinking about space and time. Most gifted individuals took 4 to 6 hours to finish it. Some took longer. Some never finished at all. Maria sat down at the terminal. She started working. Her fingers moved fast over the controls. She did not stop. She did not hesitate. Varesh worked at another terminal. He moved differently, but just as fast. He seemed to see patterns that others could not see. 47 minutes later, both of them finished. Both of them. At almost the same time. The council members looked at each other in shock. This was impossible. The puzzle was supposed to be hard. Very hard, Jakara asked Maria how she solved it so fast. Maria explained that humans evolved as persistence hunters. They chased animals for days until the animals were too tired to run. This needed good pattern recognition, the ability to predict where prey would go. The puzzle used the same skills. Resh explained that Cathari hunted in packs. They surrounded prey. They cut off escape routes. This needed spatial thinking, the ability to see the whole area at once. The puzzle was just another kind of hunt. During the break, something worried Counselor Ptex. He was young and from an amphibious species called the Quellan. He pulled Jakara aside. His skin was pale with fear. He said that two apex predators arriving at the same time was not coincidence. The universe did not work that way. Jakara wanted to calm him down. She wanted to say he was wrong, but she could not. Because deep down she was thinking the same thing. What were the chances? Two Deathworld species, both becoming spacefaring at the same time, both finding the Council in the same year. Emrek joined them. His old eyes were full of worry. He spoke in a low voice. He said they should pray that the humans and Cathari never discovered what they had in common, pray that they never became friends. Because if two Deathworld species worked together, nothing in the galaxy could stop them. Nothing at all. But it was already too late for prayers. In the garden habitat, Maria and Vresh had just met by accident. They were talking. They were smiling. They were finding out that their worlds were not so different after all. The Council's worst nightmare was beginning, and nobody knew how to stop it. The garden habitat was beautiful. Plants from 40 different worlds grew together under artificial sunlight. The air was warm and moist. Perfect conditions for most Council species. The temperature was set to a comfortable 22 degrees. The humidity was 60%. Everything was carefully controlled. Maria Chen walked along the path between the flowers. She needed a break from the formal meetings. The garden was quiet and peaceful. She stopped to look at a strange blue plant with spiral leaves. She wondered what planet it came from. Someone else was in the garden too. Maria looked up and saw Vresh, the Cathari pack leader. He was examining a tree with rough bark. His claws traced the patterns gently. He looked curious, not dangerous. Their eyes met. For a moment, they both hesitated. Then Maria smiled and waved. Vresh showed his teeth in what she guessed was a Cathari smile. They walked toward each other. They talked about simple things at first. The garden, the station, the long journey through space to get here. Then Maria mentioned Earth's weather. She said that temperature changes of 50 degrees in one day were normal in some places. Summer heat and winter cold could be extreme. Resh nodded. He understood completely. Cathar Prime had seasons too. The temperature could swing 60 degrees between day and night in the desert regions. His people had evolved to handle both freezing cold and burning heat. Maria talked about hurricanes and tornadoes, storms that destroyed buildings, earthquakes that split the ground open, volcanoes that covered the sky with ash. Viresh talked about the sandstorms on his world, walls of wind and rock that could strip flesh from bone, floods that changed the shape of continents. They were both smiling now, excited. They had found someone who understood, someone whose world was just as violent and dangerous and beautiful as their own. The garden's environmental controller started making strange noises. It was trying to process both of their comfort zone requests at the same time. The system could not understand. How could anyone want temperatures between -10 and +40 degrees? How could anyone breathe air with 21% oxygen? The temperature in the garden began to change. Up, down, up again. The humidity fluctuated wildly. Other species in the garden started running for the exits. A Quellan counselor collapsed, his skin drying out in the sudden heat. A Seth security guard hissed in pain as the temperature dropped, but Maria and Vresh did not notice. They kept talking. They were discussing their favorite seasons. Vresh liked winter when the night hunts were best. Maria preferred autumn with its changing colors and cool mornings. Around them, the garden was in chaos, but they stood there, comfortable and happy. A technician finally shut down the environmental system manually. The temperature stabilized. The other species returned cautiously. They stared at the human and the Cathari with open fear. These creatures had not even noticed conditions that had nearly killed everyone else. The next day brought the second test. Physical aptitude. The Council had designed challenges they thought were appropriate. Navigate a 0.8 G environment. Lift 40-kilogram objects. Endure temperature changes of 15 degrees. These were considered difficult tasks. Very difficult. Maria walked into the high-gravity chamber. The gravity increased to 0.8 G. She did not slow down. She did not struggle. She picked up the 40-kilogram weights and moved them from one place to another. While doing this, she talked with Jimmy about what they should have for dinner. Rish completed the same test while discussing hunting techniques with Krital. He moved the weights with one hand. He did not even breathe hard. When the temperature changed from 20 to 35 degrees, he did not react at all. Jimmy looked around the testing room. He seemed confused. He asked the test administrator if there were actual challenges coming. He said this felt like a warm-up. Like stretching before real exercise, Viresh agreed. He said these activities were what Cathari hatchlings did for fun. Young children, not adults, not trained warriors. The test administrator looked at Jakara. Jakara looked at Marek. Marek closed his eyes. They had designed these tests to be hard. Tests that would challenge any species, but to the Deathworlders they were nothing. Less than nothing. They were games. That evening there was a cultural exchange. Each species was asked to share something from their home world, something that showed who they were, what they valued. Maria showed videos from Earth. She showed football, rugby, martial arts competitions, humans running into each other at full speed, humans throwing each other to the ground, humans hitting each other with padded gloves. And the humans in the videos were smiling. They were having fun. The council members watched in horror. These were not war videos. These were not training exercises. This was entertainment. Humans hurt themselves for recreation. They injured their bodies for pleasure. What kind of species did that? Then Vresh showed Cathari bonding hunts. Groups of Cathari tracking massive animals across dangerous terrain. The hunts lasted for days, sometimes weeks. The hunters faced extreme heat, cold, storms, and dangerous predators, all to catch one animal. And when they succeeded, they celebrated together. Maria leaned forward. She looked interested. She said it looked challenging and fun. She asked questions about the tracking techniques, about how they worked together as a team. Viresh asked Maria about rugby. He wanted to know the rules, the strategy. He said it looked like pack tactics, coordinated movement, creating and exploiting openings. He said he would like to try it. Shakara wrote in her notes. They are not just compatible in capability, they are compatible in mindset. They think the same way. They value the same things: strength, challenge, working together. This is worse than we thought. Later that night, there was a diplomatic dinner. The food was separated by species. Each group ate their own traditional meals. Most species ate plants or simple proteins, but the humans and Cathari could not eat with the others. Their food was biohazardous. Too much of certain chemicals, too much protein, too much of everything. So Maria and Vresh sat together at a separate table. They talked while they ate. Maria asked why Cathar Prime wanted to join the council. What did they hope to gain? Vresh thought about the question. He said that predators respect strength, but wise predators respect community more. Alone, a hunter is vulnerable. Together, a pack is unstoppable. Cathar Prime wanted allies, wanted to be part of something bigger. Maria smiled. She said that was exactly why humans were here. Earth had learned long ago that cooperation beats competition, that working together made everyone stronger, that the whole was greater than the sum of its parts. A council security officer was listening nearby. He was supposed to monitor all the new species, make sure they were not planning anything dangerous. But what he heard terrified him more than any threat. They were forming a bond, a real connection. They understood each other. They respected each other. Two apex predators from two different worlds were becoming friends. He reported back to Jakara immediately. She called an emergency closed session of the council. Only the senior members attended. They met in secret in the middle of the night. Marek made a proposal. Reject both applications. 2 Deathworld species were too many. One was dangerous enough. But together they could dominate the council within a generation. Maybe less, but Jakara disagreed. She had information. Classified information. The Vexari swarm was expanding from Sector 17. The attacks were getting worse, more frequent, more aggressive. The council was losing. She looked around the room at the other counselors. She said that maybe they needed predators. Maybe the galaxy needed teeth and claws for what was coming. Maybe these Deathworlders were not a threat. Maybe they were the only hope for survival. The room was silent. Everyone was thinking. Everyone was afraid. But which was more frightening? The enemy they knew, or the allies they did not understand? The vote would happen soon. But first, there was one more test. The most important test, the combat simulation. The combat simulation room was the largest facility on Harmony's Reach Station. It had to be. War games needed space. The walls were lined with holographic projectors. The floor could change shape and texture. It could become a battlefield, a city, a forest, or empty space. Jakara stood in the observation chamber above the simulation room. Other senior council members were with her. They looked nervous. This test would reveal the truth. Were these Deathworld species really as dangerous as everyone feared? Or was the fear just imagination? Jakara activated the communication system. Her voice echoed in the simulation room below. She explained the test. The Vexari swarm was the greatest threat the Council had ever faced. They were machine-biological hybrids, part computer, part living tissue. They adapted to every attack. They learned from every battle. They never stopped. For 30 years, no Council species had successfully defeated a Vexari assault. The best they could do was slow them down. Evacuate, run away, hide. This was the reality of modern warfare in the galaxy. Defense, not victory. The test was simple. Face a simulated Vexari strike force. Survive if possible. Victory was not expected. Just survival. Most applicant species worked alone on this test. Some tried to negotiate alliances, but that took weeks of careful diplomacy. Maria and Varesh stood in the simulation room. They looked at the scenario data on their displays. They read about the Vexari ships, about their weapons, about their tactics. They were quiet for a moment. Then Maria turned to Varesh. She asked if he wanted to work together, team up, combine their forces. Varesh looked at her. His teeth showed in a fierce smile. He said one word, yes. In the observation chamber, the council members looked at each other in shock. 5 minutes. They had decided to ally in 5 minutes. Most species needed months to build that kind of trust. Some never managed it at all. Maria asked about pack tactics. Varesh nodded. He explained how Cathari hunted. Some members distracted the prey, drew its attention. Others circled around, cut off escape routes. Then everyone attacked at once from different directions. Maria understood immediately. She said humans called it combined arms coordination. Different units with different roles working together. Infantry, artillery, armor, air support, each one supporting the others. Each one covering the other's weaknesses. They had been acquainted for less than 3 days. But they talked like old friends, like soldiers who had fought together for years. The council members watching could not understand it. How could two species from different worlds think so much alike? The simulation began. 30 Vexari ships appeared. They moved in perfect formation. Their shields were strong. Their weapons were devastating. They had adapted to fight every council species. They knew every weakness, every tactic, but they had never fought humans. They had never fought Cathari. And they had definitely never fought both at the same time. Maria's forces opened fire first. Human weapons were different. They did not use standard energy beams. They used kinetic missiles, explosive warheads. They used electronic warfare to confuse enemy sensors. They adapted their tactics in real time. When the Vexari adjusted their shields, humans switched weapons. When the Vexari predicted their movements, humans changed course. The Vexari tried to adapt. Their programming was designed for this. Learn the pattern. Counter it. Overcome it. But every time they learned one pattern, the humans changed to something new. It was like fighting smoke. Like trying to catch water. While the Vexari were confused by the humans, the Cathari struck. Varesh's forces came from 3 directions at once. Fast attack ships that moved like living creatures. They did not follow standard tactics. They did not maintain safe distances. They closed in. They got too close for the Vexari's long-range weapons to target them effectively. The Cathari ships tore into the Vexari formation. They attacked with savage efficiency. No hesitation. No retreat. Just relentless aggression. The Vexari tried to pull back. Tried to regroup. But the Cathari did not let them. They pressed harder. Attacked faster. And through it all, Maria and Varesh coordinated perfectly. Maria's forces created openings. Varesh's forces exploited them. Varesh's forces drew attention. Maria's forces struck from unexpected angles. They moved like one organism. Like a single predator with 2 minds. The simulation was supposed to last hours. Most species fought for 6 or 7 hours before being overwhelmed. Some lasted longer if they were good at defense. But this was not defense. This was something the Council had not seen in generations. This was a hunt. The last Vexari ship exploded. The simulation ended. Total time elapsed was 2 hours and 17 minutes, 1/3 of the expected time. And the Human Cathari Alliance had taken 0 losses. 0. Not a single ship destroyed. The observation chamber was completely silent. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. They just stared at the display showing the battle results. Finally, Counselor Pitex whispered. He said they fought like they had been training together for years. Like they had studied each other's tactics for decades. Military advisor Kural shook his head slowly. He was a Seth, a reptilian species with thousands of years of military history. He understood warfare better than most. He said no, they had not trained together. They had evolved together. Different planets, but the same solution. Cooperative apex predation, the most successful hunting strategy in the universe. Jakara looked at the data. She saw the patterns. The humans provided strategic overview and technological adaptation. Warfare through innovation. Always changing. Always adapting. Never predictable, the Cathari provided tactical aggression and adaptive response. Warfare through relentless pressure. Never retreating. Never hesitating. Never showing fear. Together they were perfect. Perfectly deadly. In the simulation room, Maria and Vresh were celebrating with their delegations. Jimmy was analyzing the tactical data. Krital was discussing successful maneuvers. Everyone was excited, happy. This had been fun for them. A good challenge. An interesting problem to solve. Jimmy mentioned human history casually. He said humans had thousands of years of recorded warfare. Countless battles. Endless strategies. War was terrible, he said, but humans had studied it. Learned from it. Become very good at it. Krital responded with Cathari clan wars. His species had similar experience. Generations of conflict. Eventually they learned to work together. To combine their strength. But they never forgot how to fight. That knowledge was in their blood. In their culture. In their teaching, the council species listening felt cold fear. Most of them had 2 or 3 conflicts in their entire recorded history. Maybe 10,000 years of peace with a few brief wars. But these Deathworlders? War was normal for them. Common. They knew it like the council knew farming or art or philosophy. That night, another closed council session was called. Marek wanted to reject both applications again. He said Jakara wanted to use them as weapons, as tools. As attack dogs, Jakara did not deny it. She said yes. She wanted to give the galaxy a chance at survival. The Vexari were winning. Council worlds were being lost. The information was classified, but it was true. 4 colony worlds in the past year, millions dead. More would die unless something changed. She looked around the chamber. She said that maybe these Deathworlders were scary. Maybe they were dangerous. But they were also their only hope. Their only chance. The vote was scheduled for the next session. Tomorrow. The council would decide the fate of 2 species. And maybe the fate of the galaxy. But fate had other plans. That night, while the council debated, sensors detected something. A Vexari signature, close, very close, moving toward the station. This was not a simulation. This was real. And the Deathworlders were about to show everyone exactly what they could do. The alarm was loud. Red lights flashed throughout the station. People ran through the corridors. Some screamed. Some prayed. Some just stood still in shock. Jakara ran to the command center. Her legs moved as fast as they could. Her heart pounded. She burst through the door and saw Commander Corral staring at the main display screen. His face was pale with fear. 12 assault corvettes, 40 fighter drones, all Vexari, all heading straight for Harmony's reach. They would arrive in 6 hours, maybe less. Corral was already working on evacuation protocols. There were over 8,000 beings on the station. Different species, different needs, different ships. Evacuating everyone would take 14 hours. Maybe more if there was panic. The station's shields would activate automatically. They were strong, but not strong enough. Not against this many Vexari ships. The shields would last 4 hours under sustained assault. Then they would fail. Then the station would be destroyed. Jakara felt her hands shaking. They needed 14 hours to evacuate. They had 4 hours before the shields failed. The math was simple. Terrible but simple. Many people would die today. The command center had 50 security officers. They were good people, trained peacekeepers, administrative staff, but they had never faced real combat, never fought in an actual battle. They knew theories and procedures. But theory was not the same as war. Someone entered the command center. Maria Chen. She walked straight to Jakara. Her face was calm, determined. Behind her came Varesh. His expression was equally serious. Maria spoke quickly. She said to give them access to station systems and security forces. Give them authority to command. Give them everything available. Varesh added one more thing. Get all the council species out of their way. Let them work. Jakara looked at them. These were the species everyone feared. The dangerous Deathworlders. The unpredictable aliens. But right now they were the only hope. She asked what they needed. Maria smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator that had found prey. She said they needed everything. And permission to do what Deathworlders do best. Shakara gave the authorization. She gave them full access. Full authority. She hoped she was making the right choice. She hoped she would not regret this. Things changed immediately. Jimmy took 25 security officers to one training area. Maria took the other 25 to a different area. They split the forces. Jimmy began teaching human tactics, room clearing, crossfire zones, cover and concealment, fire and movement. These were not defensive tactics. These were assault tactics, attack tactics. Jimmy was teaching them to advance toward danger, not run from it. Fresh and Krital took their group to another section. They taught Cathari pack surge tactics, overwhelming aggression, moving as a unit, using fear as a weapon. They taught the security forces to be scary, to be intimidating, to make the enemy afraid. The council security officers were confused at first. This was not how they were trained. They were taught to hold positions, maintain barriers, protect and defend. But the Deathworlders taught something different, something more aggressive, but they learned. They had to. They had no choice. And they had good teachers, the best teachers. Teachers who had evolved in worlds where hesitation meant death. 6 hours passed quickly. Too quickly. The Vexari ships arrived. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They just attacked. That was what Vexari did. Attack, adapt, consume. The station's shields activated. Energy weapons hit the shields. Again and again. The shields held, but the power levels were dropping. Faster than expected, the Vexari were using new weapons, adapted weapons, weapons designed to break council shields 3 breaches. The Vexari broke through the hull in 3 different locations. Combat drones poured into the station. Mechanical warriors with biological components, fast, smart, deadly. Council security forces fell back. That was their training. Establish defensive lines. Wait for support. Protect civilians, but the human-led forces advanced. They moved toward the breach. Not away from it. They used coordinated fire and movement. One group fired while another moved forward. Then they switched. Always advancing. Always pressing forward. The Vexari drones were programmed to fight rational opponents. Opponents who avoided damage, who valued their lives, who calculated risk versus reward. But these opponents were not rational. They charged into danger. They accepted injuries to close distance. They did not stop. The Cathari-led forces were even more aggressive. They charged directly at the Vexari positions. Fresh led from the front, a pack leader who would not ask his warriors to do anything he would not do himself. They hit the Vexari like a wave of teeth and claws and fury. The Vexari could not adapt. Their programming could not understand this behavior. It made no sense. These beings should retreat, should preserve themselves, but they did not. They attacked harder. While the ground forces fought, Maria was working on something else. She was at the sensor station, studying the Vexari fleet, looking for patterns, looking for weaknesses. She found it, the command corvette, the ship coordinating all the others. It was staying back, protected by the other ships, but that meant it was the brain. Kill the brain and the body would be confused. Maria went to the shuttle bay. She found a small transport shuttle. She loaded it with all the excess reactor fuel from the station's reserves. Then she programmed a course. A collision course. She was going to turn the shuttle into a missile. A kinetic weapon, simple, brutal, effective. Council members watching from the safe areas were horrified. She was going to die. She was going to kill herself to destroy one ship. This was insane. This was suicide, but Jimmy just smiled. He said not to worry. Maria was a test pilot before she became an ambassador. She had ejected from failing spacecraft dozens of times. She would eject at the last second. Probably Maria launched the shuttle. It accelerated. Faster and faster. The Vexari command corvette tried to shoot it down, but it was small. Fast. And Maria was a very good pilot. At the last possible moment, she ejected. The shuttle continued. It struck the command corvette at 3% light speed. The explosion was massive, blinding, beautiful and terrible at the same time. Vresh had been watching. Without being asked, he had sent a Cathari shuttle to pick her up. Because that is what pack members did. They looked out for each other. With the command ship destroyed, the Vexari assault lost coordination. Human tactical doctrine exploited the confusion immediately. They adapted their strategy, focused fire on the confused ships, cut them off from each other. Cathari aggression broke the remaining boarding parties. The drones tried to retreat, tried to regroup, but the Cathari would not let them. They pressed harder, attacked faster, showed no mercy. The remaining Vexari ships withdrew. They retreated. For the first time in decades, the Vexari chose to run away. They had learned something new. They had learned fear. The battle was over. The station was damaged but secure. 89 casualties. Only 12 dead. Against a full Vexari assault, these numbers were impossible. Miraculous, Maria and Vresh met in the medical bay. Both were injured. Nothing serious. Just cuts and bruises. Battle wounds. They looked at each other and started laughing. Vresh said her plan was insane, crazy, but he respected it completely. Maria said his charge was suicidal, reckless, but she understood it completely. They were Deathworlders. This was what they did. This was who they were. And today they had saved everyone. The vote would happen tomorrow. But everyone already knew the result. After what they had just witnessed, there was only one possible answer. The council chamber had been repaired overnight. The damage from the Vexari attack was gone. New panels covered the holes. Fresh paint covered the burn marks. But everyone remembered. They would always remember what had happened here. The emergency session began exactly on time. Every council member was present. Nobody wanted to miss this vote. This was history. This would change everything. Jakara stood at the center podium. Her voice was clear and strong. She said the vote was for the admission of 2 species to the Galactic Council, the humans from Earth, the Cathari from Cathar Prime. The debate began. Some council members spoke against admission. They said the Deathworlders were too dangerous. They did not value life the same way. They thought violence was always the answer. They solved problems by fighting, not talking, but other voices spoke in favor. They said the Deathworlders had saved them, had trained their people, had shown restraint when they could have taken control. They could have seized the station during the chaos, but they had not. They had protected it instead. Then Councillor Emrek stood up. The old reptile moved slowly to the speaking platform. Everyone was quiet. Marek had been against the Deathworlders from the beginning. Everyone knew this. So what would he say now? Marek spoke slowly. He said he had feared the Deathworlders because they were predators. Because they were different. Because they were dangerous. And he had been right. They were all of those things. But he had learned something yesterday. Predators protect their pack. Predators defend their territory. Predators fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. And yesterday the Deathworlders had decided that the Council was their pack, that Harmony's reach was their territory, that the Council species were worth defending. Rek changed his vote. He voted yes for admission. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. The final vote was taken. It was unanimous. Every single council member voted yes. Both humanity and the Cathari were admitted to the Galactic Council. This had never happened before. Never in the entire history of the Council had 2 species been admitted at the same time. Maria and Vresh stood together as the vote was announced. They did not cheer or celebrate. They simply nodded to each other, a gesture of respect, of understanding, of partnership. But admission was not the end. It was just the beginning. Maria proposed something unprecedented, something that had never existed before in the galaxy. The Deathworlder Compact, a formal military alliance between Earth and Cathar Prime, shared defense systems, shared research, shared military bases. They would not have separate council seats. They would share one. They would vote together, decide together, act together. Iresh explained the philosophy behind it. He said their species had evolved on different worlds, but they had evolved the same solution. Cooperation made predators unstoppable. Working together made them stronger than the sum of their parts. Maria added that the council needed protectors. Species who understood violence, who could face threats that others could not. The compact would be the claws and teeth of civilization, the shield for those who needed shielding. The council approved the proposal. The Deathworlder Compact was established, the first joint military alliance in council history. Things moved quickly after that. The Joint Deathworld Command was created. Jimmy and Kratal were put in charge of training programs. They began writing the first Galactic Infantry Manual, tactics from 2 Deathworld military traditions, translated for species who had never needed them before. Council species volunteered for the training. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Nobody wanted to be helpless again. Nobody wanted to freeze in fear when danger came. The Deathworlders had shown them something important. Courage was not the absence of fear. Courage was acting despite the fear. The Velthi sent warriors. The Quellan sent their best soldiers. Even the peaceful Seth sent representatives. Everyone wanted to learn. Everyone wanted to be stronger. With council approval, the Deathworlder Compact launched an offensive into Sector 17, into Vexari space. This was not revenge. This was not extermination. This was negotiation by force. The humans followed their strategic philosophy. Make the enemy realize that attacking costs more than it is worth. Show them that aggression brings consequences, that expansion brings resistance. The Cathari followed their tactical philosophy. Hunt the hunters until they become prey. Never stop. Never slow down. Never show weakness. 6 months later, the Vexari signed a peace treaty. They agreed to borders. They agreed to rules. They agreed to negotiate before attacking. It was the first time in their history they had done this. The first time they had treated other species as equals instead of resources. 1 year after the vote, Harmony's reach looked completely different. The station had been rebuilt bigger and stronger. A new wing housed the Joint Defense Command Center. Ships from 47 council species trained together there. Personnel from all over the galaxy came to study at the human and Cathari military academies. They learned tactics, strategy, how to think like warriors, how to protect what they loved. The Vexari even sent an ambassador to the council. Former enemies were now wary neighbors. They did not trust each other, but they respected each other. That was enough. That was a start. Maria and Vresh sat together at the council table every session. They represented the Deathworlder Compact. They voted together. They spoke together. They had become symbols, proof that different species could work as one, that predators could protect as well as hunt. One day, a new applicant species arrived at the station. They were called the Krell. They came from a planet orbiting Tau Ceti. Initial scans revealed something interesting. Tau Ceti 4 was a Class 11 death world. The Krell were aquatic. Massive bodies covered with armor-like plates. They moved slowly on land, but were clearly powerful. Very powerful. Junior Counselor Ptex was no longer so junior. He had learned a lot in the past year. He had trained with the Deathworlders. He was braver now, stronger, but old habits died hard. He whispered to Zakara. Another Deathworld species. What were the odds? Zakara watched Maria and Vresh. They had both noticed the Krell. They looked at the data. Then they looked at each other. They shared a knowing glance. A silent conversation that only they understood. Maria stood up. She walked toward the Krell delegation. Her hand was extended in the human greeting gesture. Vresh joined her. He displayed the Cathari posture of respect. The Krell representative looked confused. These were the famous Deathworlders everyone talked about. The warriors who had defeated the Vexari. Why were they being so friendly? The Krell asked where they would fit in, what role they would have. Both Deathworlders smiled, that forward-facing predator smile that had once terrified the council. But now it meant something different. Now it meant friendship, acceptance, welcome. Maria said they would fit in with the compact. With them, the council needed protectors. And Deathworlds bred the best protectors in the galaxy. Bresh added that they were always looking for good warriors, strong allies, fellow predators who understood what it meant to fight for something bigger than themselves. The Krell looked at them, then at the council chamber, then back at the two Deathworlders standing side by side. Predators from different worlds, different species, but united, strong, confident. The Krell smiled. Their version of a smile. It showed teeth, big teeth, and they said yes. They would like to join. They would like to be part of this, part of something bigger. Jakara watched from her seat. She thought about how much had changed. 1 year ago, the Council had feared Deathworlders. Now they welcomed them, sought them out, learned from them. The old Council had run from threats. The new Council faced them. The old Council had been prey. The new Council had teeth. Yes, the Deathworlders were terrifying. They were dangerous. They were fierce. But they were also loyal, protective, noble in their own way. The galaxy slept safer now, though the reason for that safety was still sometimes frightening. But that was acceptable. That was the price of survival in a universe where the gentle needed the fierce, where peace required warriors, where civilization needed guardians. Two Deathworlders had walked into a Galactic Council meeting and left everyone terrified. But in the end, it was the galaxy's enemies who learned to fear. And that made all the difference. The end.